welcome to the third ILC webinar. As you know, we started this series of webinars to take a look at how all of us in home claims can help each other through the challenges that lie ahead, and we've had a couple of very interesting conversations so far. So, you know, it's to help everybody who's working so hard and sometimes so strange, in such strange circumstances and unprecedented times. Do remember that also next week, next Thursday, we'll be having quite a big webinar with some professionals helping us to look at how we are supporting all our colleagues and all our teams in terms of possible mental health issues or help or avoidance throughout this time after we come back from Easter holidays. Today, what we've done, I think you've seen it in some of the publicity, we're looking to get ready for the restart. What actually has to happen, particularly in those associated directly with property repairs, to get us to restart properly. And in the last two webinars, the things that seem to regularly have come up are resource, materials, equipment, very importantly, cash flow, and I think that's going to come up a lot today, and also specific issues relating to getting back inside. You know, will the situation still be the same? Will things that have dried not be dry again? Will there be chemical issues around? Will the schedule of repairs change in the intervening time? So I've asked three of our colleagues to come in and sort of chat this through. So I've got Jeremy Sykes of Polygon, Steve Gelder of the Gelder Group, and Neil Stothart of RSK Raw. And that kind of covers a spectrum from disaster recovery, getting in there, from doing the work, and from some specialist things that might require done. So, as I've said before, there's no rights or wrongs in any of this. We're all, from all the insurers all the way down, we're in uncharted territory. We're discovering things. It's, you know, 5 days to the next working day after today. Who knows what it's going to look like in another 5 days' time? We don't really know what's going to happen. We don't know what we're going to discover. But at the moment, we are where we are. And what I want to do today is look at what will put us back in shape, make sure we're back in shape to be able to serve our customers and our policyholders when the time is right and in whatever aspect we do it. So I guess if I start with Jeremy and then go to Steve and Neil in order with all of this, it'd be quite interesting to know what's your current position, and broadly, before we go into detail, what are the challenges you think you're going to face in being ready for a restart? Jeremy, if you can go first, please.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Afternoon, everybody. I guess our current position, we're still running a national service. We've got quite a number of our colleagues in the back office. Well, they're all working from home in the back office, but we've got quite a lot of our colleagues also on furlough. Claim volumes have dropped quite significantly in the perils that we principally get involved in. And actually, out of all of the people we've got nationally, technicians aren't always busy. They haven't got enough to do right now. I guess the other thing to say is that we've got quite a few nervous people out there too, our staff, and that's a real challenge for us to make sure that we're sort of looking after them and communicating them and obviously triaging things before they go to site. But some of the things that I guess consume me right now are trying to get orders coming through the door still to keep our people busy, trying to make sure that we are able to interim invoice claims because some of our customers allow us to do that, some of them don't. To make sure that we get cash coming in, because the government support is fine, but it certainly doesn't cover anything like all of our costs. So I guess those are the key things that we're looking at the moment, Alan.
Hey, what about you, Steve? What's the current position, and what are the challenges to get back in shape for restart?
Well, a lot of what Jeremy said, really. We've only got about 20% of staff still working. We can get hold of subcontractors. Quite a lot of subcontractors, the smaller guys, are desperate to work. But again, you've got to kind of triage it and make sure you can work safely. Materials are an issue. And cash flow, really. I think everyone should be fine at the moment with cash because the government have been quite good in relaxing VAT payments and PAYE. But it's in 6 weeks' time. You know, if the payments don't come through as quick as we hope for the furloughed staff, and then with no invoicing or very little invoicing throughout the month, it's what's that going to look like in 6 weeks, 10 weeks time.
Okay. What about you, Neil? What's the position like with you, and what do you think you're going to have to do to get in shape?
It's a little bit different for us because, interestingly, our instructions haven't declined that much. But it's just quite difficult to do the work. So we're at the moment we've furloughed about a third of the staff. That will, if this lockdown carries on, that will get worse. We'll have to furlough more. As the others said, I mean, it's a brilliant scheme actually by the government for helping us during this period and make sure we can keep everybody on board basically, so we can restart in the future. We do have some of our staff do have concerns. Why wouldn't they? But luckily, because we're generally involved in contamination all the time, we're able to. We've got the correct PPE. We can work in situations that maybe other people can't. We can wear the mask if we shave off our beards and things. There's ways around it. I think yeah, cash flow is our biggest concern. I mean, as a business, there's certain sacrifices already been had to make with furloughing. All the directors have taken big pay cuts to assist. A lot of the other staff that are remaining, which is a difficult situation. So you've got staff that are remaining to work and not furloughed. A lot of them have now taken pay cuts. But we're just trying to make sure we've got enough cash in the business to get through the period. That's the difficulty.
So if I was to say, what help could people who instruct you? So I guess in the main, you're instructed in this industry by insurers or loss adjusters on insurers' behalf. So starting with you, Jeremy, broadly speaking, and we'll go into detail later on, what help do you need from insurers and loss adjusters to ensure that you're in the right shape to return to work? Because over the last two webinars, we've heard concerns that resource won't be there, and some of the suppliers might struggle to be there. So what can insurers and loss adjusters do to make sure that we've got the capacity and the ability to go and help policyholders when we return to work?
So there's going to be a timing issue on cash, in the sense that we're keeping going and we're going to eat through, if you like, our backlog of order book as much as we can. And try to invoice stuff. As I said earlier, we've got to have the ability to invoice, and some insurers find that. I guess what we're seeing at the moment, some insurers are more flexible about that and are saying, "Yeah, we'll do what we can to help you on that." Some are a little bit computer says no type things, and we could do with help on that. We have got a lot of people now. The insurers have got their people working from home, are on computers. They're able to look at lots of claims and send us lots of emails. They send us lots of emails. We haven't got all the staff sitting there to reply to all those emails. So it would be helpful if they contact us when things are urgent, but let us get on with the work. And I think what I was referring to about what's going to happen and timing wise is that we're going to have an issue when at the sort of end of this lockdown period, when I think there's going to be a bit of a surge in demand, because there are people not making claims right now who probably want to. If that happens, we're all going to get a load of work to do, a lot of people to bring back on, a lot of costs in advance of being able to invoice, and then there is going to be a bigger cash squeeze, I think, in 4 weeks after this happens. And I think we all need to anticipate that and just see it would be great if insurers could help us out and think about what we could do by giving us advance payments or something like that when they're giving us instructions. Okay,
and just for on to Steve, if there is any questions somebody might like asked, if you click the question and answer button, we will do our best later on to answer a few of them if we can get them in. Steve, back over to you. What do insurers and loss adjusters need to do to help you get back into the position you need? Because it's not just about the glut of claims that Jeremy points out may not be being claimed just now, but we've got a whole glut of claims and follow up to the flood claims of people who are either out the house, we dealt with that I think the other day, and also those that have been living in a house with a family, spending a lot more time with properties that have an issue or halfway through some form of repair. So what can they do to help you be in the position to help them best?
Well, I don't think loss adjusters can particularly do much to help with the current position of a claim, whether you can proceed or you can't while we're in lockdown, because we need to deal with that. The one thing they can do is deal with the payments. I mean, payments, our payments for insurers in February, this is for insurance companies and loss adjusters, was averaging out at 67.34 days in February. That's gone up to 70.46 days in March, and it takes less than 30 days for an insurer to pay us. So the loss adjusters need to get on top of the paperwork and get some of these accounts through and paid, clear this backlog.
So the problem there would be if loss adjusters decided to put some of the staff into furlough, they wouldn't be able to do that. So I haven't talked to any of the loss adjusters about this. Could that be an issue between any insurers and loss adjusters who do that, which would perhaps slow down the payment?
Well, it's a slow enough process at the moment. So that is a huge worry if loss adjusters start furloughing surveying services staff or loss adjusters, because it only takes one person to go out that chain to hold up, to create a delay with payment. So we really need to, this is the time to deal with this, really. We can't continue to work for loss adjusters that continually take 70, 80, over 100 days in some cases, to just purely through the processes and not getting the payments through. Not at this time. It really needs dealing with, because there's a surge of claims. We've got a massive order book, which we need to get stuck into. And every building contract that's dealing with insurance claims will be the same at the moment. It's all about cash for us, because once we ramp up, we need to crack on with these jobs. We have supply chains to pay, and we've got wages to pay. And we will have been coming in off the back of a couple of months of really low sales. So if there is, to me, only one thing the loss adjusters need to do to help us, and that's get rid of this backlog at the moment, which should be a good opportunity for them, because I guess they don't get paid till they clear these files neither.
What about you, Neil? What do you think you want insurers and loss adjusters do to be able to leave you in the right shape to start?
I think the others have probably said it. I mean, since this crisis, call it that crisis, has begun, there's been lots of talk about over the last couple of weeks getting invoices paid, but our age debt has actually increased by a third since the crisis began. So actually, we're just not getting paid. So, like I said before, there is an expectation now for us to go out, and we are desperately trying to help these insurance companies' clients or customers. We're going out there. We're going out to the Shetlands. That's no small task at the moment, to get out there and try and help people in the Shetlands. We've got homes with oil vapors in them. We're trying to, they're a human health issue, so they're important work we have to do even during the coronavirus problem. It's essential. Getting supplies supplies and plant materials is difficult, but it's all impossible if we're not getting paid. And so, I think as of this morning, our over 120 days debt is £500,000. We're not that big, when we're waiting. And when you look at it, it's not like at 120 days. Some of these invoices were issued a year or two ago. I mean, it really does take that long to get paid. So I think earlier in the week we got a query on an invoice that's seven months old. So that's the first time it's been looked at. But we're expected to respond and deal with people and sort of help people's health and well-being for our customers. And some of that I think needs to be focused on us as the supply chain as well. And there are issues over suppliers. Will Quibell last week referenced it, and he's done a brilliant job with us actually now. And we now have, because of their buying power, in effect, we now have a direct way of getting the materials on site, which is brilliant. And I think there needs to be more of that, and we need to be putting it all in place so that when we actually get back to full strength, we've already got the suppliers online and everybody to plant the materials to be ready in the right place. We're not going to be able to do all this work in one go, so we should be prioritising it now. And knowing when we can start bringing people back from furlough. It's like the other said, it's that at the moment it's a cliff edge. If the government turn off furlough and we end up with all these staff back, we're going to be lost.
Okay, I think it's fair to say they're quite consistent message with what we've had. We have had Will Quibell and Laura Lazarus on so far. And these two, along with several other insurers that I've been talking to, are determined to do absolutely everything that they can to help. One of the issues that I've actually been talking to them a lot about is that, you know, you can help and try and clear as much debt to a supplier as you can directly affect, which is current debt and debt that's directly with them. But the next thing is to clear it through any independent party, loss adjusters, other claims handling businesses that they use, where there may be a delay. Even if an insurer does that for themselves, unless there's a broader collaboration, they could clear all the money and release all the money through to that supplier that they deal with. But if that supplier deals with several insurers and the others don't do the same thing, then there's still a chance that supplier is not going to be there when we return to work. And that's one of the biggest issues. So how much pressure do you think, how much pressure do you think we can leap on the process to get these particular issues cleared? Because there's three forms of financial problem here. Current debt, which I think the insurers, perhaps with some difficulty in terms of systems and people working alone have, but are trying their best to do. There's having enough money to restart, but that all depends on releasing what all three of you have said is a considerable age debt issue. So do you think that's somewhere where the insurers and loss adjusters can just really get their heads around that and get you in the right position, Jeremy?
I think they've definitely got the desire to do it. I think people sometimes talk a good game, but you actually can only work on the results that you see. We work very closely with all of our insurer customers, and I think we're getting some really good noises from pretty much all of them at the moment. Obviously, I want to see that translate into pound notes in the bank. But as it stands at the moment, people are saying the right things. But I do think there is going to be a requirement to do things, out of the systems, and that's when it's going to be a struggle, because everybody is bound more and more these days. We're saying, I've got such and such a system. That's the only way you can pay something. And this is an extraordinary situation. It's one that nobody's ever faced before. People have got to think beyond that, and there's going to be struggles perhaps internally with compliance and all that sort of stuff. But generally, for the invoices we put in, we've already had somebody approve it as an estimate before we did the work. So at the end of the day, what we want is somebody to confirm that and pay it. But sometimes that is going to have to be done perhaps outside of the system. We might even have to use paper to actually get something done. And I think, people are going to have to think alternatively, because otherwise there is going to be a cash crunch, I think.
Steve, I'm not asking this question directly for an opinion on what the Gelder Group would do, so I'm going wider than this. You can answer it whichever way you want. But and somebody's asked this, what impact will all of this have on how you prioritise, how suppliers will prioritise customers when they return, if their resources are limited? Because as we said earlier, when your people come off furlough 1 week, you've got to make the wage bill the next. So that's like instant investment required.
It is very difficult not to prioritise, because what happens is once the claim's in your hands, you prioritise the policyholder, really. So it is very difficult, because although the work comes in through different work streams, you generally treat the work. I mean, we have some special clients that we really try extra hard for, but reality is all the KPIs and that, you just got to keep going. But it just feels to me that there's a bit of I don't know how to explain it, but the insurers are starting to listen, and they really need to get hold of their supply chains, because it's like it's like someone complaining about some scaffold at Gelders, and I say, yeah, well, that's down to the scaffolding company. I've subcontracted it. Insurers can't just subcontract, or they do subcontract it, but they need to hold some of their supply chains to account. And I feel that is happening, to be honest. I've had quite a few calls direct with insurers asking for details on any debt that's stuck with a loss adjuster that's on their books, which we've released to them, but not to really have a go at any particular adjuster, just to try and highlight this fact so maybe they can unblock it, because we're struggling to unblock it. And a bit like Neil, we've got debts that run into years where there is no dispute. It's just somehow fallen out the system. Getting it back into the system sometimes needs an insurer to delve into it and just get the bloody thing sorted. It can't be that difficult, but we can't go forward on running 70, 80, 90 days. You know, this needs to be down to 30, 40, 50 days as a whole with no debt for older than 6 months. This is what needs to happen. And if that happens, we'll all have a good fighting chance of coming out the other end of this. But if it doesn't, I think it could theoretically be kind of carnage if that's your only source of income. Because I can't see the banks being very supportive to a particular company where his client isn't paying him for 70 or 80 days. He's going to say they're going to turn around and say, we don't need to lend you money. You need to get on top of your credit control, which is right, really. So.
Neil, you're very lucky to have a lot of sister companies that work in perhaps different, the same industries. Are the problems we're facing in this and the challenges, how unique are they, or are there other industries that RSK and Raw serve that are showing similar patterns?
They're all a little bit different in their own way. With our work, we're quite fortunate because the incidents keep occurring. In fact, you might get more in terms of domestic properties and heating oil. At the moment, the lockdown is I could horribly say it's quite good for us, because people kicking footballs around their garden, this type of thing, can cause damage to heating oil systems. So we will probably get a bit of a surge off the back of that, although the sunny weather might aid some of that. But interestingly, what we are seeing in other parts of RSK is that the clients are stepping up a lot quicker than the insurers. So, for example, there's big issues on some major projects which are put on hold at the moment because there aren't enough people they can't carry on a small scale, basically, so they're put on hold. However, the clients are extremely worried about maintaining their supply chain. So we've got clients who are demanding invoices immediately, and they are paying them within 24 hours. And that's purely because they are trying to keep their supply chain all in a row, so it's there for when they start up again. And I think the insurers could probably do with talking to some of those other larger organisations, and they'd see the different approach. And we're only talking about this has been going on a month, something like that, although we have known for a while before it was going to happen. And yet those big companies, and some of them are big, and as Jeremy said, they're working outside of their normal NEC contracts and this type of thing, and then they're paying on demand. And that's just to try and keep everything moving.
Can I just jump in there, Alan?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, I mean, like Neil, we do a lot of work for a lot of public sector bodies, and it is incredible. I mean, they've always paid fairly quickly anyway, certainly less than 30 days, but we're having exactly the same thing. So whereas we're doing work for the NHS at the moment, we put an invoice in and it is literally paid in our account within 48 hours, and that's what's financing the business. But it just feels morally wrong for someone like the NHS to be effectively financing, say, AXA's work or another insurer. It's just wrong. We need everybody on board at the moment and doing it. And it's not just to have a go at anyone in particular. It's just say, guys, we're all in this together. We just need to get stuck in and sort it out. Anyone who works in this industry will tell you it's a nightmare getting paid when we're dealing with third parties. But we need to find a way of short-circuiting this and dealing with it.
And I think it's worth pointing out this: we're in different circumstances now. This just isn't us saying something that we've said before as an industry. This is saying, actually, if we can't crack this over the coming weeks, there may be very, very few people left to do the work at the end of it when we return to work. Before, Jem, I'll come back to you. Before all of this started, there was a lot of talk about the competitivity of rates we pay and how we're going to be able to get tradespeople and good workers to be able to do work, especially if there was an increase in claims or any weather event. I'm not sure how this will or won't affect it, but you know, at the end of it, do you think we'll have a better choice, or do you think your employees will have a better choice of places to go to work?
It's tricky. I think, well, I'll just answer it with just a point of something I'm seeing from outside the UK, if I may, some of our sister companies outside the UK, because right now in Germany, the insurers are, I was talking to my German colleague yesterday, and he's saying that the insurers are really stepping up and helping them in Germany. And they feel like it's a real partnership, and they're really doing everything they can about cash, something similar to what Neil and Steve were saying for other industries. And they're also getting plenty of claims volume coming through. And they've also got a lot of talk in just German society right now that after this is all over, this mess that we're living through, there's going to be a great deal of unemployment in Germany. And what that's fueling is people saying, blimey, I better stay with my current employer, because actually I'm not sure I'm going to have a job at the end of it. It's interesting. I said to him, we haven't had that debate at all in the UK. I don't know. There's still going to be a demand for all of the services that we all provide. That's not going to go away. There's still an unmet demand for new home building, and that's going to be there. All those drawers are going to be on the system. I think we certainly desperately want to hold on to all the people we've spent so long training and investing in. The last thing we want to do is let any of them go. But it's without doubt, when it all settles down, we're going to have to see what happens with claim volumes and I guess some of the changes that are permanent in the system, because some of these companies will go under probably now, and they simply won't be there. Others will take time to step into the breach. There will be others. It's capitalism after all, isn't it? So people will be creating companies, but it's not going to happen instantly.
Steve, I know from conversations I had with you, I think in February, you were expressing that there had been a huge improvement in trading position, and certainly in the release of work on major projects through councils, etc. How do you think so that was going to have a big effect in what you were able to do and how you were able to have people? Do you think that's going to change, or is that just going to make it even more competitive when we get back to normal?
No, I think it's going to be really difficult. I mean, who knows what it will be like, but I think there'll be a big downturn in work for construction. So around 25 to 30% of our work is through insurance, and that will be what it will be. But the pressure comes from the other side of the business, and we've already seen a couple of contracts cancelled. So I can see there being a big halt for the likes of new office building, works to private schools. Just some of the things we're seeing. People aren't going to be too confident to be. I mean, we're in the middle of not starting a job, but I guess it will get pulled. A factory for Lincat, a company that makes catering equipment. They're extending their factory at Lincoln, hugely successful company, export all worldwide. I cannot believe there's going to be demand for catering equipment at the other side of this. So I would guess that will be pulled. So I think there will be a lot more tradesmen coming available. But reality is, it's not just the tradesmen on insurance. It's a different skill, really. It's more of a human skill to go in people's houses and repair things. But I don't think there'll be the pressure there was before this on trades, because we had seen a massive jump in orders in the first couple of months. But I can see it going into reverse.
How do you think, Neil, how do you think it's going to affect your side of the industry and the other work that you do outside of insurance?
I think the insurance will be reasonably safe because of the. In fact, we might get an increase what you tend to find is when companies and factories cut back on staff. That tends to be when they have some of the environmental incidents. So we might actually pick up some more on that. We've actually done quite well out of. We're trying to keep, like everybody's saying, we're trying to keep our staff. So because of they're used to kitting up, and our friends at our asbestos division at RSK as well. So we've actually been doing COVID-19 cleaning in office blocks and call centres and this type of thing, and that's worked out quite well to be able to maintain quite a few of extra staff. Over recent years, it's definitely been all stacked in the favour of the employee when you're trying to take people on. It's whether that be trades or professional. It's actually quite hard sometimes interviewing because you feel like you're being interviewed because they're asking, well, what's going to happen? When will I be promoted? This? When will that happen? It's really, really quite difficult. And I think that will probably change. I think you can already see that there's, there's sort of a lot more uncertainty within construction at the moment. I noticed, I think today was it that we've got 60,000 people have already signed up to do fruit picking in the southeast, which no British people wanted to do that before. So I think people are realising they need to work. So maybe the tables will turn a little bit, and it might not end up being that bad after all. But yeah, some of the big projects, and that's where RSK we will continue with our insurance work, but there will be elements of RSK that I'm sure are concerned, whether the major infrastructure projects and things that are basically going to slow down, you might decide to delay them till next year. And that's I think where there's going to be a problem. And that there will be a gap between the end of furlough and when some of those big projects continue.
With all of that in mind, Jeremy, what are you doing to sort of keep, I guess this begins to move on to the next week, but keep in contact with your employees, because you're covering quite a wide area, we cover the whole country. How are you keeping them involved? Those that are working from home, that aren't used to working from home, and even those that maybe aren't, if you've had to do furlough, or those that are working remotely with not a lot to do, how are you kind of keeping them involved?
Well, using lots of technology, really. I mean, we've got a sort of phone system in the cloud anyway, so actually people can work from anywhere, and it's a virtual switchboard, so that's fine. We can see what they're doing, we can see their productivity, and obviously we try to make it fun as well, because one of the things about work is the interaction with people, isn't it? So try to have instant messaging going on, WhatsApp, all that kind of stuff, so people have a bit of fun in their day, even though they are sitting on their own, they still feel they're connected. They've had to put up with me on video occasionally, which is something nobody has to ask for. But and then we are in contact with them at least a couple of times a week from centrally, but certainly multiple times daily from their local sort of colleagues and managers, etc., etc. So it's communicate, really. Try to keep people feeling like they're part of the team and feel like they're doing something really important, which at the end of the day they are.
Steve, what about you guys that are on furlough and you're not able to work? How are you keeping in contact with them?
Same, really. A bit of WhatsApp, a few mobile phone chats, some great jokes going about on WhatsApp. I'm sure you've seen a few. That's all you can do, really, isn't it? I mean, we're in Lincolnshire, so generally most of us have got a nice garden and we can get out and walk. And it's the guys in town or live in flats. I mean, it must be just horrendous. So Lincolnshire is not too bad a place to be at the moment, but I guess some of our guys are getting a bit sick of being sat at home at the moment. So let's hope it ends soon.
We've had a few comments and questions. I've asked a few of them, and I know Stuart asked about the frequency and severity of reported home claims, and I think the only person that's really seeing them was Neil. Does that mean you've been able to keep more people on the real pay run than you might have expected, Neil?
Yes, we have actually. We right at the beginning we did a sort of a worst case scenario, and we're still a few weeks away from that at the moment. There was a huge panic initially, primarily because of the way the government guidelines were misinterpreted by the press generally. So it was like all work has to stop, and that's clearly not the case in England and Wales. And we've actually had to explain to some adjusters and to some insurance companies that they need to read the guidelines. It didn't say do no works everywhere. Not all of our work is inside people's properties. Some of it is in the middle of nowhere. In fact, a lot of pollution is in the middle of nowhere. So we can keep social distancing quite easily. So that hasn't been a problem. And there are instances when it's essential to do so that we do go into people's homes. Like I said before, if you've got a house full of vapours, it's important that we actually reduce the vapours in the house and make this house safe for their family. Likewise, if the oil is going to be getting into the river, I can assure you now, the insurance companies aren't going to be too keen if in 6 months' time they find out there's a major pollution incident that could have been resolved for a bit of work now. And that's how we have to tread carefully. But yes, there are instructions we get where it's not going anywhere at the moment. So we've received the instruction, but we're not going to be able to do anything because it's in a stationary position, basically, the oil. It's not going anywhere. We'll deal with it in the future, and that's parked. and we just have to come back to it at a later date.
Hey, just an interesting one to go around, Olivia, another one that's come through in the questions. I'll start with you, Jeremy. Has anybody got COVID-19 or had the virus in your organisation, and how have you been able to deal with it?
Well, we've had a lot of people who have had symptoms and then have gone off for 7 days, or been in a family and their partners had symptoms and then gone off for 14 days. So we've had a lot of that. I guess none of us know whether they've actually had COVID-19 because there aren't any tests being done. But obviously we pay them full pay for that period and check in with them, look after them, and then we've got some of them now coming back. So that's all you can do, I think.
Steve, what about you?
No, we've had the odd person go off with a cough, or the wife's not been very well, but no confirmed cases. No.
Okay. You, Neil?
Yeah, we've had one or two. Actually, we had more trouble early on in the right at the beginning when there was one or two that we've seen quite ill, and we've had two which have been particularly ill, which we probably think were affected by the virus. But given that there's 80 of us, we just were able to work around it basically. And there's been so much quite. They live with vulnerable people as well, and so because of the home working, it's all come back at the right time. As long as they can work from home, it's the site guys that are the bigger problem, because they don't want to go to site at the risk of being infected and coming back. And in that situation, we've worked with them, and in fact, furlough works very well as well.
Just sort of last thing, I'm keen to get the sort of noise from this right. We've heard a lot about payments. I think what we're really saying is the payment. We've seemed very pleased with the reaction of insurers, and when they can get straight to it, they're doing everything they can to get us paid. The debt that we're talking about, and from what you've all said, and some other people who've sent in a question, from what you've all said, this debt is big, but it's not because insurers aren't paying, it's because somewhere in the process, with the use of third party or other things, are getting stuck for far too long. And basically, if we can really, really focus on that and get it done across the board, then we're going to be in a much better position come the end of this than the frightening position will be if you can't. Is that sort of the angle we're trying to look at here, Jeremy?
Yeah, cash, but also keeping activity, so that we're actually, if you like, priming the pump for as we want to return. I mean, we've got to keep going. I mean, that's a requirement of the government, as you said. I think, as Neil said, I think government was very misleading in what they said to start with. It was like, don't work. All of our people said, right, okay, that means that we shouldn't be working either because we're not in the health industry. But government and the country needs us all to work, doesn't it, to keep going, because they can't afford to actually pay for the whole country to stop work. And so we need to get those orders running through the system. That's vital, as well as the cash being paid. I think you referred to it earlier, Alan. It's only 6 weeks ago we were talking about 2 big storms. We had the best part of 1,000 flood claims 6 weeks ago, and there's an awful lot of people, very unhappy people, who are now dealing with a horrible situation like the rest of us, but probably doing it in a hotel if they haven't been kicked out of it, or an alternative accommodation without their possessions. So there's some people in really difficult situations we've got to work through.
As we had last week, these people were in hotels. They're no longer in hotels. So yes, there is a lot of things and priorities to restart. Have I got it right though, Steve? We're not having a go at anybody here, but we're trying to say, like, this has been locked up. Traditionally, this money's been locked up. But if we don't get that unlocked across the board, with insurers even collaborating to make sure the third parties do it, if we don't get that done, then we could have a real problem come the exit from the current situation.
Yeah, I think that's the basic message, really. This is not disputed debt, it's not complaint cases, it's just debt. It's got stuck in the system, and it just needs someone to get in there, winkle it out and deal with it. But for us, you're probably looking at, I don't know, £1 million, 1.2 million, that's over 45 days, say. Any other client that don't pay within 30 days, we're on the phone wanting to know what's going on. Most people pay as within 21 days, but for some reason in insurance, it's never been like that. But if we can release that £1 million, we can come out or release £1 million of it, we'll be come out the blocks fighting and ready to tackle the huge backlog of claims that we know are just sat there from the floods.
You said earlier on, Neil, I think that you were impressed with at least one or two of the insurers and their effort to really help the situation. That's really what we want to see all over, isn't it?
That's it, because we're all in it together. Because we all know as soon as this is over, everybody will forget reasonably quickly. The complaints will come flooding in later in the year. We need to get back on top of those jobs, and we can only do it if as everybody says, if the debt is cleared and we've got all the supply chain lined up ready to go. And we find a way of prioritising the jobs, and we explain it to everybody. There's a lot of work for us all to do, and the more delays and the problems around it, it's actually going to cost the insurers a lot more. If we don't get back on those jobs, the pollution doesn't stop. It'll rattle through people's homes. So where we might just have to take out areas around boilers, it'll suddenly become the entire kitchen, the dining room. And then it could get into a water course, could even get to the next door neighbour's house. So the quicker we are set up for getting all that sorted, the less money it'll cost the insurers. So so it's in their interest to help out basically with it all.
And that of course escalates itself onto every other type of claim. All the people that are in alternative accommodation, if we can't get the resource to the right place and the return to work, then of course all I would say to everybody, and then it's just going to increase the expense to the insurers, which after all is where we all start. So my overall message to this is an industry, and I'll keep following this on in the future weeks, an industry, this is an issue we have to address. We're not throwing bricks, we're not blaming anybody. All we're saying is if we can resolve this, we can see a way to be ready to go and activate on behalf of policyholders, get them back into their homes at the end of this. If we can't resolve these outstanding debt issues, then it's going to be more and more limited. So thank you very much, guys, for doing it. Just to remind everybody, next Thursday, we're going to do a big session, probably an hour long, on looking at how we can help our colleagues, our teams, our management, and all our families to deal with this from the mental health capacity, making sure that we can motivate them and we can deal with people who have really pressing issues. We're all in a different situation. I think we really do work well together. And as I think I said at the beginning of the first, all of the webinars obviously is, this is a real test for home insurance claims people to show that the trust issues of the past can be put aside and we can really work together to make us more efficient. And if we can't do it now, it's very worrying. The insurers I have talked to have been very committed personally to doing this. I understand that that's a long way from personally doing it to make sure it happens, but actually it's a responsibility of us all, not just insurers, not just loss adjusters, not just suppliers, all of us. So thank you very much for listening in. Have as good an Easter as you can under difficult circumstances. All I can say is the sun shines in Essex, and you can't always say that. Please be very, very safe, and more than anything else, everybody listening, please stay very positive, and we'll get you news of next Thursday's webinar out to you probably just after this and in Tuesday morning. Please have a very good time, and remember, when your staff return in 5 days' time, it's 4 days holiday. It may have been at home, but then they're back to the realism of a new way of working and no sign immediately of getting out of it. They will need all our attention. Have a happy Easter, everybody. Thank you very much for participating.